to have Canada have more control over its own food supply is what I hope will be my legacy project of my career.
In the past, been so reliant on imports of various food items. This food independence, I think, is critical.
I've never felt more proud to be Canadian. And so when I look at, doubling down on our business, why wouldn't I?
President Trump threatening Canada with tariffs is almost an everyday occurrence. And the threats work because we're so dependent on the U.S. I mean, take food, for example. Almost 70% of our food and agricultural imports come from the States. But does it have to be that way? What would it take for Canada to be more self-reliant and stand up to Trump's whims?
So you can see blocks of metal set up here. I love taking my son through the grocery store and saying, this was made at our factory in Brantford. That's fantastic.
Meet Garnet Lasby, president of Massili North America, a company based in Brantford, Ontario that makes metal lids for food jars. More than 1 billion of them a year.
It's important that Canada be able to feed itself, fuel itself, and defend itself. And those are not my words, those are the words of Prime Minister Carney. And we're contributing to Canada's ability to continue to feed itself.
Garnet believes food storage is key to independence.
If you don't have a cap, but you have a jar and you have tomatoes, you have a lot of rotten tomatoes. The same is true with cans. If you have tomatoes and no cans, 2 weeks later, you no longer have much that's worth anything.
And here's the thing. We use billions of cans in Canada for the food industry, but almost all of them come from the U.S.
Lots of Canadian agricultural products wind up in cans. We'd like those cans to be made in Canada and then sold on Canadian retail shelves. In anticipation of bringing the can production online is...
For Garnet, the Buy Canada movement is part of the business case for his company to spend $85 million to start making cans here.
You can see this is all just pieces of the process. We need coating rolls to go in the machines. These are all...
He admits it would have been easier just to keep making lids.
This is not the path of least resistance. We're pivoting into a different product so that we can support the Canadian agri-food industry. Okay, I mean, that's more construction, but I guess if you're going to do the other side for the coil line.
Garnet meets with the team in charge of designing the new production lines to make cans.
Absolutely.
And he pushes them to be ready for this year's harvest.
We need to keep in mind the timing to be able to catch the season. Like 100% of the cans have to be made and ready to ship by September. Otherwise, you miss the season.
Yes.
So, clock's ticking, right?
Yes.
Okay.
As long as you only keep,
Massili wants to profit from making cans in Canada, sure, but for Garnet, there's more, especially now as Canada tries to be more independent.
I didn't either, actually. We are investing in the equipment to be able to use Canadian steel for these Canadian cans, as opposed to imported steel. And that to me is very important because if I'm using anything other than Canadian steel, it's a spear in my heart, and we need to use that steel for the products that we need, and contributing to the fact that we control our ability to feed ourselves as a nation.
Of course, a nation needs not only cans of food to feed itself, but fresh fruits and vegetables. And that's what we import the most. And the top of that list are leafy greens. 90% of the lettuces we eat in Canada come from south of the border. Here's someone who's trying to change that.
You can see as you look down, each and every day the plants get bigger and bigger because they're working towards growing to the exit at the very far end.
Andy O'Brien is CEO of Goodleaf, the largest vertical farming company in the country. Since Trump got elected, their business has taken off. They can't keep up with demand.
I've never seen the pro-Canadian sentiment the way I've seen it over the last year. It's almost like you walked into the grocery store and every category that had a Canadian brand was empty, including ours. Our sales went up 4 times overnight, and it hasn't stopped.
Even so, Goodleaf only has about 10% of the Canadian market, but they're betting they can get more. The company is investing $52 million to double production at their farms across the country.
This is our germination room here. It's almost like a sauna, where they go in there for 2 days, where they literally germinate before they go into our actual grow room.
The name of the game in vertical farming is to control every step of the growing process.
We control all the light, we control the air, and we control the water. Even if you look up, you can see that some of the benches are dark because our plants are sleeping right now. We're still, on the scale of things, relatively small. But I do see over time that continuing to increase, and that will help us today and continue to grow us into the future and allow us to be way more independent.
Why does that matter?
Because you can control your own destiny. You don't have to rely on external factors, whether it be political, whether it be financial. If you're inside the four borders of Canada, you can control your own destiny. I think that's really important to companies, and it's really important to Canadians.
No matter what's happening outside, in here they grow 11 billion plants a year.
So Nick, here you have it. This is our crisp lettuce, which has spent 15 days in our grow room. The yields on our products are almost 100%. This is the beginning of it being very, very obvious to all of us in Canada that we need to be much more independent, but it's just the beginning. I think over the course of the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we're going to see a lot more independence, not only in leafy greens, but in other sectors as well.
One of the challenges to Canadian self-sufficiency has always been that we export raw materials and we buy back finished products. This happens with food too. That's what Martin Vanderloo wants to change.
I think is a wake-up call for Canadians. We've been reliant on other countries importing products that we don't produce here in Canada.
Martin built this demonstration facility to prove that Canada can do more than just export crops. As a farmer who's been around soybeans his whole life, he knows where we fall short.
I was surprised that we're not taking soy and further processing it into food products or food ingredients. So this is the soybean that the farmer would deliver to us. The extraction equipment.
Martin tells me that processing soybeans isn't easy, and he admits that at 68, this project is the biggest challenge of his life.
So this is the unit that we extract the oil from the soybeans.
So what's Martin's pitch?
So we're going to produce soy protein powder here in Canada that's never been done in this country before, but we're going to do it in a way that's never been done anywhere in the world in the past.
Okay. Martin's idea is big. Soy protein is used in thousands of foods we eat, from baby formula to power bars. And right now we import all of it from the US. The other remarkable thing, Martin's process won't use chemicals.
And this is kind of where the magic happens.
These days, Martin is CEO of a company called New Protein International. Local soybean farmers like John Moore come by to hear about the new opportunity.
So rather than exporting raw soybeans out of this country, we can certainly export soy protein isolate as well. So we take the soybeans that you've produced.
Martin explains that it's the economic uncertainty in Canada right now that's actually pushing him to succeed.
My wife asks me frequently, why are you doing this? I mean, you're of retirement age, you should be retired. For me, it's just an opportunity that shouldn't be lost, and I'll do what I can to make it happen here in Canada. So we take the split beans and we heat them.
It's striking. These three companies aren't cowering. Each of them is making a bet on the future. What if we don't do this? What if we don't do things like this in this country right now?
I think we leave ourselves exposed to a continued hollowing out of our economy. I think we need to use the natural resources that we've been gifted with to make the products that we require here in Canada for the stability of the future of our economy and for the young folks like my son who need jobs in Canada. If we don't do that, I think we expose future generations to enormous risk that those jobs just won't be there. And at some point, the food that we need may not be there either.